Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good morning. You're listening to BCIT The Crow. I'm Jocelyn Chappelle with your 12 p.m. news headlines. As temperatures dropped in the lower mainland, the effects were felt across the city. A pipe malfunction at YVR caused flooding on Friday. Luckily, operations were not affected as crews worked quickly to repair the damage. Over at Mission Memorial Hospital, there was also a pipe burst which has caused emergency patients being diverted to Abbotsford and Maple Ridge hospitals. Residents at a Surrey senior care home were also evacuated this weekend, as well as after pipes burst in a heating system failure. 13 residents were moved as Fraser Health works to determine the extent of the damage and an action plan for residents to return as soon as possible. Residents across Metro Vancouver were left without water due to a pipe freeze. Our reporter Ugi Silvonas found out ways people can prevent pipe bursting and freezing in their homes.
Many people have lost water access in their homes due to pipe freeze, pipe burst, drain freezing, pipe leaks, and flooding across the lower mainland. Jared Bernstein, a co-owner of PG Plumbing Vancouver, recommends people to call a plumber to fix damages rather than trying to fix it themselves.
Do is leave your faucets running quite just a trickle, the hot and the cold, at all times, and then make sure that you know where your water main is. So that's the main shutoff for the water to your house, and that way, if you discover a leaking pipe, you can go shut off the water before it causes any damage.
Metro Vancouver is expecting to have longer frozen temperatures throughout the week. People should take precautions to prevent pipes from freezing. I'm Ukila Swanova for BCIT The Crow.
Ugi joins us now in studio to talk about what's happening and what measures we can take. Ugi, what is the worst temperature for pipes to freeze?
So according to Jared Bernstein from the PG Plumbing Vancouver, he says it's the worst temperature for pipes to freeze is the below -5.
And if someone's pipes did freeze in their homes, can they fix it themselves without a plumber?
Well, it would be better if they could reach out to the plumbers and to reach the help. But if they don't have any help, they can't access to the help, then they can just cut out a piece of the pipe and then just replace with a new one. And
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Ugi.
Thank you.
The Langley RCMP says a pedestrian has died this morning after being hit by a car. The incident took place outside of an Aldergrove neighborhood shortly after 7 a.m., according to Mounties. They say alcohol and speed do not appear to be factors and that the driver remained on scene to help with the investigation. Police are urging drivers to take alternate routes. They say 264 Street will remain closed for the majority of the day and do not have an estimated time of reopening. Court recordings have revealed that during an investigation into the murder of a 13-year-old girl, BC police officers went undercover disguised as tea marketers to secretly collect the DNA of around 150 Kurdish community members. The DNA was collected in Burnaby during a 2018 Kurdish New Year celebration, according to homicide officers. The investigation led to the identification of the brother of Abraham Ali. Ali was convicted of first-degree murder in December with a sentencing date looking to be set today in court. Ontario's highest court is hearing from 7 young people challenging the province's climate change plan. Don Kelly with the Canadian Press has the details of the case.
The 16 to 28-year-olds have argued Ontario is breaking their charter rights by setting emissions targets dangerously low, putting their futures at risk. A trial judge dismissed their constitutional challenge last year, but did agree the province's plan falls severely short of the scientific consensus of what's required to tackle climate change.
A coroner's inquest into the mass stabbings that took place in 2022 on James Smith Cree Nation is now taking place. The inquest is underway in hopes to reveal to the public what happened during the attacks, prevent similar tragedies in the future, and honor the victims killed. The attack happened September of 2022 when Miles Sanderson killed 11 people and seriously injured 17. One man was killed outside of the Nation in the nearby village of Weldon. This inquest will be the longest and largest that has ever been run in Saskatchewan from January 15th to February 2nd. 6 jurors will be making recommendations at the end. It will then be up to each agency to consider them and act on them. A Nova Scotia Supreme Court judge has ruled it illegal to lock down any inmates because of staffing shortages. Keith Duquette with the Canadian Press describes what happened prior to the decision.
Justice Peter Rosinski found that inmates Darrell Diggs and Ryan Wilband experienced ongoing material deprivation of their liberty while incarcerated at the Central Nova Scotia Correctional Facility last fall. The judge says Diggs was detained at the jail for 51 days. On 38 of those days, he was confined to a cell for 22 hours per day. Under full staffing, inmates should be safely out of their cells for up to 12 hours a day. Rosinski suggests better planning to ensure full staffing, distributing inmates throughout the provincial system, and using bail and temporary absence leaves as ways of dealing with persistent staff shortages. Keith Doucette, the Canadian Press, Halifax.
Canadian shippers are starting to feel the impact of attacks on cargo vessels in the Red Sea. In light of container rates increasing and boats being late to arrive, Michelle Zadikin with the Canadian Press has more.
Port data shows 2/3 of the 43 ships slated to dock at the Port of Halifax over the next 2 weeks are now expected to arrive at least a day behind schedule, with some running weeks late. Industry research firm Drury says the average price of shipping containers has doubled since mid-December, when commercial ship attacks in the Red Sea were stepped up. Shipping Federation of Canada CEO Chris Hall says the delays have sent many importers scrambling, though it should be noted shipments to the West Coast largely remain unaffected so far. Michelle Zedikian, the Canadian Press.
For upcoming local weather, Environment Canada has lifted Arctic outflow and extreme cold warnings for a majority of the province. However, residents should be prepared for snow flurries on Tuesday, followed by rain later this week, with temperatures expected to stay below zero. Today, it's mostly sunny, with wind chill reaching -10 right now. However, winds are expected to lighten up as we head into the evening. Those were your 12 p.m. news headlines. Coming up after the break, we'll be talking about what's making sports news today. I'm Jocelyn Chappelle with BCIT The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting. Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
This is sports on 1680 The Crow.
Welcome back to BCIT The Crow for the afternoon sports rundown. Today in hockey, the Canucks are hoping to maintain their 5-game winning streak after hopping on the ice at 10 a.m. this morning against the Columbus Blue Jackets. The score is currently 3-2. The New Jersey Devils are currently up against the Boston Bruins. The Bruins have a 1-point lead as they enter the third period. The Seattle Kraken are currently facing the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins are entering the third period with a 2-point lead. Over in the NBA, it's Martin Luther King Day, so there are games all day today. The Toronto Raptors face the Boston Celtics at 4:30. Damian Lillard swished a three-pointer at the buzzer in overtime to give the Milwaukee Bucks a stunning 143-142 win over the Sacramento Kings last evening. Here's the final call from that game.
So now Lillard will inbound and does the Kings foul here. Lillard goes into the front court. He's going to fire up a three for the win, and he hit it! Game time has arrived!
Over in the NFL, it's the final day of Wild Card Weekend. The Bills vs. Steelers game has been moved to 4:30 p.m. today due to weather yesterday. The artificial turf is no longer full of snow, but the stands are still covered. Steelers safety Miles Killebrew says the cold will be a challenge for both of the teams.
Yeah, they're saying it's supposed to be cold. They're saying it's supposed to be windy, and that's something that we have to be ready for, but so do they.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will host the Philadelphia Eagles in an NFC wildcard battle tonight with kickoff at 8:30 p.m. Eagles center Jason Kelce told reporters the team will play to its potential.
It's a reminder to ourselves and to the fact that, if we go out there and play up to the potential that we can play, that we can compete with anybody and win on every given week.
Jared Goff threw for a touchdown and completed a game-sealing first down against the team that cast him away. And the Detroit Lions won a playoff game for the first time in 32 years, beating the Los Angeles Rams 24-23. Here's the call as David Montgomery rushes 1 yard for the opening drive touchdown and a 7-0 Lions lead.
Jared up under center. Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery again, steps to his right, into the end zone, touchdown Detroit Lions. That's the way you open a playoff game. 75 yards straight down the field to the end zone.
The Green Bay Packers have handed the Dallas Cowboys their first home loss since the 2022 opener. Jordan Love threw for 3 touchdowns, Aaron Jones ran for 3 more, and Daniel Savage returned an interception, 64 yards for a score in the Packers' victory. Here's the final call as the Packers shocked the Cowboys and moved on to the divisional round.
Jordan Love takes and drops to a knee, and that will do it. The youngest team in the NFL, the little team that could, came into Big D and take out the Cowboys 48-32.
The Canadian men's field hockey team faced a tough 9-0 loss to Germany at an Olympic qualifier. Even with the loss, the Canadians are looking ahead to the games against Chile on Tuesday and New Zealand on Thursday. Those have been your 12 p.m. sports headlines. I'm Joss Chappelle. Thanks for tuning in to BCIT The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
The BCIT campus where the gardening club just planted these trees. So in the BCIT Journalism program, I learned how to use the professional cameras to film our own news stories, and also the soundboards and mics in the radio booth to host shows for our radio station. I'm Kate Renault in Burnaby for BCIT Magazine.
About this program is a hands-on experience. Every day I'm honing the skills that I'll use in my future career.
we're in a smaller group environment compared to other schools, I find that the camaraderie between like your colleagues or classmates is really good.
The reason why I chose this program here at BCIT is because of the hands-on experience. We're always doing assignments that follow the industry standards. So once I graduate and I find my first job, I feel pretty confident that I'll have the skills that I need.
This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
I'm Nicholas Hauka, and this is the Fall Off Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss players, teams, and coaches who seemingly had a very bright future ahead of them, but against all odds, never lived up to the hype. We discuss how they became household names, excelled at one point of their careers, and then the inevitable fall off. Over the next 3 weeks, I will be talking about arguably one of the greatest college quarterbacks and Oregon Ducks players of all time, Heisman-winning quarterback Marcus Mariota, who led the Ducks to a national championship game and was taken second overall by the Tennessee Titans in the 2015 NFL Draft. But shortly after, the fall-off began. It's 2015 in Chicago, Illinois. Day 1 of the NFL Draft is about to start. In the green room is Jameis Winston. Winston has always been highly touted, being a 4-star prospect coming out of high school. And after a prominent career at Florida State, is hoping to be selected number 1. Sitting next to him is Marcus Mariota. Mariota was almost an afterthought of the same recruiting class coming out of high school, only having 4 FBS offers. Despite that, Mariota is right next to Winston, and after what he accomplished in his last 3 seasons with Oregon, has just as much of a chance to go number 1. Who will go first? Who will go second? And how did Mariota defy the odds to get here? Rewind to late 2011 in Eugene, Oregon. The Oregon Ducks football program is riding as high as it ever has been. Under head coach Chip Kelly, Oregon is having its greatest run in program history. Finishing the previous season 12-2 and without a devastating loss to rival USC late in the year, would have been right back in the national championship game, just like the previous season.
Maldonado on the way, pulled it left, no good. USC upsets Oregon.
Hoping to continue their newfound dominance in the 2012 season, seemingly out of nowhere, Darren Thomas, starting quarterback for the Ducks, declares for the 2012 draft. Ducks and college football fans are shocked, as despite having 2 wonderful seasons for the team, he wasn't seen as pro-ready. What Ducks fans were unaware of was how much pressure Mariota was putting on Thomas during practice. Farhan Lalji from TSN, who covered that Rose Bowl game, had some insight on what was occurring during that time.
But when they got into bowl prep that year, he was making a real name for himself. And just during that bowl prep period, while Thomas was still the quarterback, you knew that there was going to be a battle the following year for sure. And, I'm sure that if the portal was available like it is now, Thomas wouldn't have declared. He probably would have just gone elsewhere.
For most fans not privy to this information, the mystery behind that baffling draft declaration would be solved the second the college football season would start. With Thomas moving on, Brian Bennett seems to be the shoe-in starter going forward. During the season, Bennett backed up Thomas and exceeded expectations whenever he filled in due to injury or late in games during a blowout victory. However, a little-known two-star QB recruit out of St. Louis High School in Hawaii was about to make a big impression. Marcus Mariota looks to steal the starting job from Bennett in his second season as a redshirt freshman with the Ducks. After impressing coaches and players alike during training camp, on August 24, 2012, the Oregon Ducks announced that Mariota had officially won the starting position, beating out Bennett. It's September 1st, 2012. Oregon is playing Arkansas State in their season opener. Marcus Mariota throws 18 completions on 22 attempts and 300 yards, impressing the Ducks coaching staff and fans alike with his poise, accuracy, and decision-making. Gord Randall, TSN scout, with more.
Wow, yeah. I remember watching some of those early starts from Mariota, and one of the things that stood out was his movement skills at his size. Like, he was already 6'3" and change. Chip Kelly already had a reputation for having a pretty quarterback-friendly offensive system, so they were running a bunch of that spread option stuff. Mariota was clearly immediately a weapon with his legs.
Mariota went on to not throw an interception until Week 3 and led the Ducks to a 12-1 record. Mariota finished the 2012 season with a completion percentage of 68.5%, 2,677 yards throwing, 752 rushing yards on the ground, and 32 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions.
And then that freshman year blows the doors off of everybody, and the sky appears to be the limit. And so, Oregon was a trendy pick for the national championship that year, and from the outset, that was the bar that was set for that Ducks team.
Following his first year as a starter, Mariota looks to put up even better numbers in his second year, which he would do in his sophomore campaign, throwing for 34 touchdowns to 4 interceptions with 3,665 yards total, while leading Oregon to an 11-2 record. Despite the success of his first 2 seasons, the biggest knock against Mariota and the Ducks was they could never win the big game against their conference rivals, always being one game away from the national championship before suffering a heartbreaking defeat to eliminate them from contention. Going into his junior year, Mariota and the Ducks were determined to switch the narrative. Heading into Week 9 of the 2014 season, the Ducks had an 8-1 record after having a lone hiccup on a Friday night game against Arizona. Now, the biggest game of the year so far, facing a bitter rival in the Stanford Cardinal, who had Oregon's number the past 2 seasons. Stanford had pounded Oregon into the ground the previous 2 years, running the ball at will, chewing clock, and making life hell for Mariota while eliminating Oregon from national championship contention in the process. Mariota was dialed in, and him and the Ducks finally matched the Cardinals' physicality in a dominant performance. The Ducks came out on top 45-16, and it looked like Mariota had finally found a way to silence critics. Other than a temporary scare in Utah, Oregon had no trouble getting to the Pac-12 championship, beating every team handily, outscoring their opponents 193-69 along the way. In Week 5, Oregon lost a frustrating game to Arizona, and in the Pac-12 championship game, they looked to avenge their prior defeat. They came out and utterly destroyed the University of Arizona by a score of 51-13, and with that victory, sealed a spot in the very first college football playoff in NCAA history at the Rose Bowl. The very first college football semifinal at the Rose Bowl in NCAA history would be a game between the defending national champions, the Florida State Seminoles, and the Oregon Ducks. The top 2 quarterback prospects heading into the 2015 draft, Jameis Winston and Mariota himself, were on the big stage on New Year's Day. 2 weeks prior to this colossal game, Marcus Mariota became the first Oregon Duck and Hawaii-born athlete to win the Heisman Trophy.
The winner
of the 2014 Heisman Memorial Trophy is Marcus Mariota of the University of Oregon.
Winning the Heisman that year was also a big deal, just the attention that brought to the university.
The biggest game of Mariota's career was about to start.
They'll bring it out. This is Allen. The sprinter, still loose. Can't spin free, dropped at the 20, and that's where the Heisman Trophy winner, the proud Hawaiian, will begin.
After feeling each other out in the first half, the score was 18-13 for Oregon. But then, when the third quarter started, Oregon pulled away, off of many Florida State mistakes. The game ended with Oregon winning 59-20. This was Mariota's biggest win of his career.
Previous year with Winston, and for him to go to Pasadena and win that game, the fact that they could win that game, I think, was very much a signature moment, right?
With that win, Oregon is now in the national championship, facing a red-hot Urban Meyer-led Ohio State Buckeyes. Come game time, Oregon is ready to go, but Ohio State played a way more physical game on both sides of the ball, and while Mariota did his best to lead them to a win, ultimately Ohio State came out on top 42-20. 2 days out of his most emotional defeat, Mariota officially declared for the 2015 NFL Draft and began his preparations to transition into the NFL. It will be Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota battling to be the number one pick. Next time on The Fall Off. Front offices debate on Winston or Mariota.
We're wowed by Jameis's arm talent, right? And I thought Mariota had more than enough of that, but I think that's where Jameis might have separated himself a little bit, right? Like Mariota was probably the better athlete.
And after a long draft process, finally, a decision is made.
With the first pick in the 2015 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select.
This has been the Fall Off Podcast. I'm Nicholas Hauka, and for Josh Udon, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikka-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikka-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.